Hello, everyone. So we are back for another career in spirituality conversation. So I'm Julie Pone. I support spiritual seekers having a career experience in enjoying their career and grow spiritually and professionally. And I'm delighted to have Jochen Frey with me today. Hi, Jochen, how are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. Appreciate it.
And so we're going to start with just a 2 minutes grounding before engaging in our conversation. And so for everyone who's listening, close your eyes, except if you're in a car or in a fancy situation. And let's close our eyes and first bring our attention to our feet and just pressing our feet into the ground for a moment to appreciate the support that we have from the earth underneath us, and setting the intention to ground ourselves. And then bringing back our focus, our attention up towards our chest and to the middle of our chest where our heart is beating. And just to imagine that our breath is flowing in and out directly through the heart. And like this, just to breathe a little bit deeper and a little bit slower than we usually do for about a minute. Breathing in and out through the heart. Okay, lovely. And let's bring ourselves back here, opening the eyes, and hello again.
Well, that was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Jochen, let me introduce you briefly. You're executive coach. I'm saying you as in I'm informing you. That's what you are, an executive coach.
I'll do that.
Based in San Francisco, working with CEO, executives, co-founders in big technology companies, and you're helping them to work to succeed on both ends, successful lives, fulfilled work, all of it, having it all. And you're also a lifelong athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, exploring consciousness and enjoying adventures with your wife Tina. And hello Tina. and yeah, paragliding, surfing, and enjoying amazing experiences like vision quests, which we might be talking about in the which jungle? Some jungle somewhere.
It was Mexico, Quintana Roo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Intense experiences. So, like, deeply rooted both in the professional corporate world and like high-end spirituality as well, if I can say that. Like extreme, like not just meditating, sitting on the couch, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's my experience of you when I met you first in an amazing conference that some of our audience might be interested in, maybe joining that community. Like we met in the power community, where in a world that is mixing investors and entrepreneurs and business owners and technology, but also indigenous tribe leaders and consciousness explorers, like you said, you know, like it's a word that an expression that I got from you actually. And yeah, so that was amazing. And so actually, let me shut up and let you talk by starting by asking you, what's your relationship to spirituality? What's your experience of it, your definition of it, what it means to you?
I was afraid you were going to ask me about the definition of spirituality, because I would have to tell you that I don't know.
Yeah.
What happened to me is that I had been a co-founder of a startup company, a venture-based startup, venture-funded startup in Silicon Valley, and at some point I got really burned out. It hadn't been my first time. I got really burned out, and I had an amazing executive coach at the time, which I was fortunate to work with, who pointed me at meditation. And he wasn't even a big meditator or anything. He just, the word came up, and I got into it, and to some degree it was stress reduction, and to some degree, you know, it's just before trying to go to sleep, I would sit down and just for 15 minutes focus on my breathing, not knowing, no instruction, just I knew that was kind of helpful. And so that's the beginning of that was the beginning of it, trying something that was different. And then at some point in time, I was doing meditation, still focusing on the breath, and it was longer time, it was half an hour, 45 minutes, and at some point in time something clicked and something changed and something opened up, and it was like I was almost in a different space, at least so I could actually visually see my emotions, things along those lines. And just to be clear, I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer with an education in engineering and medicine and a whole host of other things. And I mean, it was like, wow, nobody ever told me about this. What the hell is going on? I want to know more about that. So that was the first, something else is happening. And I also am lifelong atheist, or at least no relationship with what you'd call God or source or whatever, you know, whatever your name for that is. And I wasn't going to go back to that just that. It was just like, wow, there's an experience that is way outside of what I'd experienced before. And just to be clear, this was just me sitting on my butt, focusing on the breath. There was nothing else going on, like zero anything.
Yeah.
And no, not even music. It was just me sitting on my butt. And
So
then
I was joking earlier, but that time you were like meditating on the couch. You started by that.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And that was yeah. So, and then at some point in time the stress continued, the company continued, but at some point in time we sold the company, and at that point in time it became very clear for me that I was not going to put myself in the same situation again, as it means is to say, I was not going to start another company. And the way I phrased it is just for the money. And there's nothing wrong with money. Please, everybody make as much money and have as much abundance as they want. Just to be clear about this, it's fine, but it wasn't. It's like, I'm not going to do this again just only for the money, because there need to be something else. And that started the quest for what that something else might be. And then I had some time when I was contracting, was looking into what was that thing that happened to me when I was sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
What do people write about it? What do they say about it? And it took me a long time to find people who had a shared experience and were willing to talk about it. And so I started poking around there, and I went to a meditation retreat, and here in Spirit Rock, it's a beautiful meditation retreat just north of San Francisco. It's Buddhist based, it's mindfulness, it's Jack Kornfield, and so I was sitting 5 days well, not by myself, but 5 days in silence, no speaking, no. And and I started to have experiences again, including the fact that I experienced my own death twice. I'm not sure if this is a premonition or anything, but I was somewhere I was. It wasn't even like a dream. It was way more real like a dream. I was dying in two different situations and experienced this, and it wasn't even scary. It was just something that was happening, and I had an experience. And at the same time, in the mornings, and I would go for a run, and I'd never felt that alive. I've never felt, it was just, I was bouncing and my body felt just amazing, and I was running through nature, and it was just the most amazing thing. So what I'm describing is that spirituality, for me, I can't define it. It's just an ongoing exploration of something that is not my body, and it's not my mind. We all know our body. We can touch it, we can feel it, we know it, we may be upset with it, we may like it, we may not like it. I don't, but we know, generally speaking, what it is, or we think we do. And that's fine. And then we know our minds more or less well, but we know our minds because it's the thing that's talking to us in our heads all day long, right? At least that's one angle of it. But it became so clear to me that there is something else that I had, at the age, in my late 40s, I'm in my mid 50s now, but in my late 40s, I had not had any firsthand experience with, where I was paying attention to it. And I was like, oh, this is something completely different. And now I would say it's spirituality is the exploration, the experience of that. That's what it is for me. And then subsequently, as you alluded to earlier, I keep finding more and more, I call it doors. I keep finding more and more doors by which they can be experienced, including in everyday life, but also on the sofa.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So it can be in the jungle, like in extreme fasting, but it can also be you're seeking it as well on to find that space as often as possible, interacting with people, being in the present moment. Is that what you mean by that?
So one of the qualities that many of these experiences have is to be in the moment right now, to be present. The future sure exists, but will happen, but doesn't have any bearing what is going on right now. And the past has happened, and yes, it's present, but it's not. There's not, not to be. Maybe it gets processed, anything, but it's not a worrying. It's not I'm not depressed about it, but I'm being present is one of them. And what I find interesting is that the Zen Buddhists, I think, say that either you're sitting on the cushion, which is you're meditating, you're practicing, or you tend to the garden. And which is to, be in the world. The implication, at least as I understand it, being it's all the same. Yes, we're practicing or we're in the garden. So it's like, when I'm seeking experiences, I'm an explorer. When I go deep, typically, if I can, when it interests me. And so yes, I am. I'm not sure if I'm still a seeker, but I hate. It's not. Maybe that's something to get back to. So, in experiences, you can create environments in which they are more likely to happen. Right? If you're sitting in the jungle for 4 days in isolation without food and water, there's very likely that you're going to have an experience of some sort or other.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it. It's not as obvious to people that you would have the same experience sitting for 45 minutes on your butt on your sofa and focusing on the breath. And it's maybe not as likely. I don't know, right? I assume it's not as likely. So, but what I want to get to is that experience is actually available. I believe it's present all the time. It's present right here, right now. It's a question of whether I can notice it or I cannot notice it.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
And at the point where I started realizing it and I started having fun with it and I started noticing it actually can be present all the time, I couldn't help but wish for everybody in general to experience this all the time. And this is not me wanting to push it on anyone. It's just like, if somebody had told me before I turned 45, or when this whole thing started, that was available, and kind of what the general outlines of what it might be in a way that I could hear.
Yeah.
And maybe people did try to tell me, right? I'm pretty sure a whole bunch of people tried to tell me, and I couldn't hear it, or didn't want to, or whatever.
Yeah.
But if I had had somebody who actually had been able to tell me that, and then when I was willing to hear, to actually also say, like, here's a bunch of stuff you can do to have that, or to experience this, or to practice it, or whatever the case may be, that would have been so cool. And so, in as much as I'm meeting people, I want to at least share with them that this is available.
Yeah.
You don't have to care about it. I'm not going to push it on you, but
yeah,
somebody had told me about that in a way that I could hear.
And what I find compelling is like when it comes from someone who, like you, has had a career in technology, and then suddenly and had such a intense experience, maybe people are more likely to listen, possibly.
Right. And this is a very delicate subject, because again, I don't want to be a missionary. I don't want to be pushing a message.
Yeah.
So I'm an executive coach. I have a huge benefit of having been in that kind of a role. Everyone is different. Everybody's problems are different. I've been in one of those roles. So it's easy for me to relate to them when I'm coaching. Right? But coaching is not about me, it's about them. It's about you, 100%.
Yeah.
And at the same time, part of my job is what in coaching circles and in other circles you call holding space, is to be present, to make sure it's all about them, to make sure they have a space that they can think in and feel in and do in, and that they can explore ideas, problems, visions, fears, anxieties, and be safe in it. That's what coaching does, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And what I feel that when the greater and the cleaner space that the more experience you have yourself with the range of emotions or the range of experiences, the bigger of a space I can hold, because I know it's okay.
Yeah.
I know that if you're an entrepreneur and a startup, and you take venture funding, you're going to have amazing experiences, and you're going to be scared out of your pants. And the same thing might be happening within half an hour. This might be happening like from here to here. This may be half an hour.
Yeah.
And from back to down there, maybe another hour. I'm not saying it happens every day, but if you're building a business and you're taking on huge responsibilities in an area where you're really trying to do something new, it's going to be scary.
Yeah.
And it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be scary.
And it's going to be amazing.
And it's going to be amazing. And you're probably going to be stressed.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying I've experienced it all. I'm not saying I've experienced the most extremes of it, but I kind of can, have a feeling that I know at least where you are. And I can be there with you while this is happening. And this is where it gets a bit into woo-woo land. Maybe it's I'm just gonna say it. So for me, the space I'm trying to create for people I coach, for me, it's sacred. It's a sacred space. And you don't have to believe in anything if you work with me. And this is not about for me, this is a sacred space. I'm doing something that for me it's for you, and it's special, and it's for you, and uniquely for you. And I feel that my exploration and I don't ever, now I talk about it publicly apparently, but I don't ever talk about this, right? So it's it's something very, very special for someone to be held in a place where they can experience and talk and whatever it is, and it's going to be safe, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be lovely. And for me, that before I've had all of those experiences, and I've been doing all the things I've been doing, that I don't think that would have been available for me and for my clients.
Yeah, I get that. It's like the depth of the experiences, the range of experiences you've had gives you a depth of space holding where I'm assuming that in the space that someone holds for somebody else, the person can only get as far as the person that holds the space is at. So by you having had such a depth and of experiences means that there is a very high level to which people have a door open to go safely. I don't know if I'm making sense, but so they can, I'm assuming that your clients then can go as little or as high as they can within the space that you're holding for them. That's a little bit the sense that I'm getting.
And
That's
exactly the way I feel.
Okay.
And then subsequently, the range of experiences that people are working through is everything from, oh, I have an issue with my coworker and my board is this, that, and the other, and my investors too. I have people executives coming to me working through their sexual abuse in their childhood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, big stuff, really, really big stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not like I can handle everything. I do refer out to people who are actually trained in some of those things that are too far out for me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's an absolute honor that people will actually, in my presence, work through that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's a privilege what I get to do with people. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I guess you've sort of already answered a little bit of the other question I have at the start, but let us see if there is something else. But like, on your career trajectory, because now we know that you're a coach and that how once you started to open up to spirituality, you wanted to bring that to other people. But like so where did you start? And like, is there what else, is important on your career trajectory that you want to share with us?
I don't know. It's been so for example, I think I'm a fairly lousy career coach because I don't feel it works the way that people think it works. At least for me, it doesn't work that way. Oh, I have this title and this role, and I went to that school, and what should I do next? And I'm like, what do you feel like? What is it that you actually want to do? So, so I have a whole range of experiences, and that it feels like I've lived maybe many lives in this life already. And somehow all of them fit together into this thing that I'm doing now. But it's always been like that. It's always been like that too. It's like when I was an executive or an software engineer, I made use of, as a software engineer, I made use of all the experiences I had in playing semi-professional volleyball. Somehow that played into that, because then part of this I took into how to lead teams, right? 6-person indoor volleyball, you better be playing together and doing something that works. And so for me, it's always felt that way, and I hope it works that way for everybody. And so career, I mean, I grew up in Germany. I went to school like everybody else would. I went to university there. I worked in, my first attempt at exploring consciousness, I think, was in my thesis, where I worked on what you now would call AI, machine learning, where we're trying to model what brains do.
Oh.
And so we used that technology, and it was very early in the 80s, 90s. And I was like, oh, this is so exciting. This is the consciousness. And I was like, no, it's just a classification. It just tells you if it's going, left or right. It's just, this is not there is way more going on. And
Yeah.
and then I got curious, and it wanted to leave Germany because it started feeling too small.
Uh-huh.
Ended up 2 years in Boston. The East Coast wasn't for me, still isn't for me. I'd like to
Uh-huh.
visit, but it's not. Came to California and finally felt like I was coming home, all as a software engineer, and then increasingly leader in technology startups as an engineer.
Yeah.
And then I was in Silicon Valley working there in small earlier in companies in Silicon Valley for 20 years, and had some amazing experiences.
Mhm.
Some amazing experiences and some amazing experiences.
Yeah.
Like everybody would.
Yeah. And
Uh,
so how much, like, when did you mentioned earlier, like the coach with the meditation, and when you started to have the click, when in the chronology, when did that happen on your Silicon Valley, or was it after, or like when?
the sitting on the sitting on the sofa, and that was about 2 years before we sold that company. So that was at the maximum stress level.
Mhm.
And it wasn't just stress from the company at the time, it was also stress in my personal life. There was a lot going on in my family at the time. So, and then we sold, so there was that, and then I started reading about it and started looking for it. And then we sold the company, and then, as I said, I wasn't going to do this for money again, but what was I going to do?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I started working as a consultant, and at some point in time I sat after a day of consulting and there was an audit firm also in the mix, and I sat there with a partner of an audit firm over beer, and he goes like, I want to know what's going on with you, because something about you is different. And
Oh.
he pretty much said something, I don't recall the words, but pretty much said something along the lines, I'm going to pay you money to spend time with me, to explain to me what's going on with you. I was like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
So that turned into a coaching engagement, which then happened to me a couple more times. Um, and at some point in time became clear that that was a thing. So what I'm talking about is that people actually see when your energy is different.
Mhm.
And you felt this. Everybody's felt this. At some point in time, you step in a room with somebody, or somebody steps in a room, and somehow things change, whatever it is. But it could be bad, by the way. It doesn't have to be great, right? But it could
Yeah.
also be bad. Somebody steps in the room and everybody's stressed. You've experienced that. Everybody has.
Yeah.
But there's also the other way around. The other way around is that somebody steps in the room, you go like, wow, what just happened? I want more of that,
Yeah.
right? And so I got feedback from people that was more of what was going on. And then it took a long journey to, I think it felt like this did like let my old identity of being an executive and a scalable startup and all that's a lot of this had to go away, so I could accept that I might actually be a coach.
Yeah.
And I took some training, and then fairly quickly found somebody with whom I really, really resonated by
Mhm.
serendipity, for whom coaching classically is, I only ask questions and assuming that you know what's going on. What that person did, that was Robert Ellis, and his thing is coaching from essence. He said, we all have something inside of us. That's the belief this is focused on. We all have something inside of us where, without effort and without even trying, we create incredible value in the world.
Mhm.
And the job, quote unquote, the job is, or part of the job is to everybody's, but as a coach, my job is to help you establish a relationship with this essence, so you know what it is.
Mhm.
Because when you do that, you will do amazing things, and it's not even going to feel like work.
Yeah.
And I've experienced, and it resonated with me, and by now I've experienced it over and over and over again. That's actually true. Like, you can get leaders to a point where they're stepping into their essence, which for me is closely related to spirituality.
Yeah.
Again, you don't need to use the word, and I actually much prefer not to use the word. Is when you step into when you find the thing that you step into a room and you create value without even trying. That's the most beautiful thing.
Mm.
That's amazing, right? And all of us have been doing it for all of our lives, I'm sure, and we don't even value it because it's not hard.
Yeah, we take it for granted. We don't even notice it.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't even notice it because it's supposed to be hard, and it's
Yeah.
supposed to be stressful, and medicine is supposed to taste bad. I'm not saying there's no truth to that. I'm just saying it maybe doesn't have to be like that all the time,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you have real issues that you need to solve in the real world, conflicts with people, and people got to get paid or fired or whatever needs to happen, right? But how can you do this while being in touch with your essence, with your humanity, with your heart, with and your brain, please, and your body, please, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we can, it's possible to have it all. It actually is possible to have it all. I truly believe. And it's not to say that it's always easy. It's not to say that there's no pain. This is not the thing, but you actually, now you got me right. Now you got me going. I got myself going. Now you actually can have it all. You
Yeah.
can actually, this is actually possible.
Yeah.
I know it's possible because I've seen it. I've helped people do it, and I have very often I have it for myself. It's actually possible. There's a better way. And whether you call it spirituality or whatever it is, I call it a fulfilled life. There's actually possible to live a fulfilled life. And I think, and I hope it's possible for all of us. And what I do is I help people do that. And in almost all cases, they're more successful professionally, and they're happier, and they sleep better, and they have better relationships, and they feel love in a way they haven't felt before.
Yeah. Oh.
And
Yeah.
that is worth it. That is such an honor and such a privilege to be present for. It's
The,
amazing.
yeah, the word Graal comes to mind. I don't is that what, is that what very in a way, so simply, the quest for that we're all here for, what we are meant to experience, the purpose of us being here. And so how does it, let's say, for someone who's listening to us right now, and on paper, there, of course, we want that, and maybe they might be stressed and kind of like in the eye of the storm, and between the pressure of the job. And so where does it start? What's your advice for people who would like to start to have a piece of what you described?
Well, here's what I know. What I know is that for most people, it starts with pain. For most people, it starts with the fact that they notice, like I did, that I will not do this again. This is too painful.
Yeah.
And the way I've been doing is that I've believed in that I've poured all my knowledge of 45 years worth of living into, that I've put my life energy behind, building companies, making money, doing it in a good way. But
Yeah.
It's the most obvious way in which it happens is that it's just too painful to continue on.
The price is too high somehow.
The price is too high. The pain is too great. It's like at some point, what is the point at which you start questioning what you know, what you think you know?
Oh, okay.
At what point do you start questioning that the fact that they told you? I'm not blaming anyone, by the way. I'm not here to say I'm blaming anyone, but I feel like society at some point told me like, the thing that's going to make you happy is that you're gonna go to school, and you're gonna get a job, and you're gonna make money, and you're gonna buy a house, and you're gonna have a relationship, and you're gonna have the blah 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 blah. Huh?
Yeah.
That thing. And then the classic example I can talk about, because it happened to me, is like, you could have called what happened to me midlife crisis. I'm fine with that. Call it midlife crisis. I don't care. Yeah. But that's the point where you're going like, maybe it has worked for them. The house, the car, the relationship. Maybe it's worked for them, and if so, good for them. It's not working for me. Yeah. What's true seems to be true in general out there, quite obviously is not true for me. Whether it's true out there is not, I'm not even know it's true out there, but it's definitely not true for me.
Yeah.
So now I got to go and find out what is true and what is important.
Yeah.
And that's why I said that's the quest. And so if I hadn't had that kind of pain, I'm not sure I would have been motivated to tear down my beliefs about what works.
Yeah.
So I don't think it has to be pain, by the way, but pain will sooner or later is going to do it.
Yeah. So maybe for that's like for people who are experiencing it, not to actually have a different perspective about that crisis, that it's not like there's something wrong with us, and this part could be an important part of the journey, with a before and an after, with the after being much better than the before.
Yeah. So what I was pointing at is the motivation.
Okay.
Right? Why would you even want to change something? And if you have the motivation, you think you have the motivation, good, awesome. Let's set it aside. The next thing is required is curiosity.
Yeah.
Because most people sit down and do meditation, and then at some point in time, it's like, this is boring. This is really boring. I'm supposed to, what? I've been sitting here for like 2.5 minutes focusing on my breath. That's about the boring thing I've been able to, right?
Oh yeah, 2.5 minutes. Yeah, come on, inner peace. I don't have all day.
Exactly. 2.5 minutes. Whatever your time is, 5 minutes, 20. It doesn't matter. It's at some point in time, everybody that I know of, and including myself, is like, wow, this is boring. And so the thing that will get you through it is curiosity. Right. And I would say boredom is in almost all cases as a lack of curiosity. Now, why there's a lack of curiosity is a whole different question, but it's a lack of curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. So, because I think you have to be willing to go on a quest. It's not a plan. It's not like follow those 5 steps and you're going to be there. And there is some knowledge, there are some lineages, some schools, some lineages, we actually have fairly well mapped paths that can get you there, whatever there is. For example, Zen Buddhism has a really, really high hit rate in getting people to spiritual experiences, I believe.
Okay.
I'm also pretty sure that some plant medicines have a very high hit rate to get you to have an experience.
Yeah, speeding up the process.
Speeding up the process. But the question that I think is super important is, why are you doing this? Right? And if you're doing it to have a great experiences on ayahuasca or whatever they may be, knock yourself out. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But arguably you're doing something different. I'm arguing that you're doing something different. Not wrong, not right, but make different. So to become meditation is about becoming curious about the experience that I'm having.
Okay.
So I'm feeling my breath. Oh, now I'm noticing that I'm getting bored. I wonder which part of me is getting bored. What story is the thing that's getting bored actually telling me? Oh, if I'm listening to the thing that's getting bored, it's telling me, then I'm clearly, the thing that's perceiving is not the thing that's getting bored, because we just established they're 2 different things. One is getting bored and the other one is like, oh, I'm curious about the thing that's getting
Yeah.
So if you really get curious about it, and then you go like, what's the thing that's noticing? What's that all like?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. curiosity. And whether it's this or whether it's about how the world works and why school systems are the way they are and why we all believe that's the right way. Doesn't matter. I'm just picking something that's available to all of us, which is focusing on my breath.
Okay.
So you get curious. And whether you can do it by yourself or you do it with a coach or a spiritual teacher or a qigong teacher or a yoga teacher, or there are traditions that actually are really good with pointing at these things.
Okay.
When you start looking at stuff at that level of detail, you're gonna find something interesting. I would pretty much guarantee it. You're gonna find something interesting. And I'm not sure what it's gonna be for you.
Yeah.
I can point you at a whole host of things that I've noticed, and I have, as a coach, developed ways to actually help you to go there with me, which I think is one of some of the coolest stuff you can do.
Yeah.
That's me personal, not necessarily as an executive coach, but is some of the coolest stuff you can do. It's like, then you go like, that thing that's noticing, what does that feel like? What does that smell like? What is that? What crazy stuff. It's super fun, right? And then, because then the experience becomes like, there is actually something else. What might that be?
Yeah.
What does that feel like for me? And I truly believe that, let's use the word spirituality, that I'm with the Gnostics. I'm with the people who say I need to have a first-hand experience. This is not intermediated by someone else. This is me or you or anyone else having an experience. Because at the point where you have an experience, this is not about whether this is true or false anymore. This is because you just had the experience.
Yeah.
You can still then debate whether it mattered or didn't matter, or whether that's like, whether you were hallucinating or going insane. That's fine. That's a separate conversation, which is why you want to have somebody who can hold the space for you. Because if you just had a crazy experience, what you thought was crazy is like, no, I'm not sure if I took you through slowly enough, but there's this thing that actually observes something being born, right? That's fairly benign. But it's still maybe not a way you haven't looked at it before. I'm not saying you, but somebody may not have looked at it that way before. It's like, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody who can hold the space and say, yeah, that's one of the many things that's possible.
Yeah.
You just experienced it. You can decide whether it's important or not, but let's just create the space for that experience. Because some of those can be really cool, and some of those can be actually life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah, to avoid having thinking you're not being able to ground it, or thinking you're going crazy, or questioning yourself for having had the experience. So having someone who's more experienced and can reassure that the experience is valid, I guess. Is that what you're...
Yes. And the part that I'm reacting to in a way is like, one of the big changes that I believe happens in general, certainly happened for me, that I believe happened in general, is that when you continue to have notice that things are happening in your consciousness like that, when you can observe things and they're happening over and over again, and then you notice that there's nobody else who can validate that. Right, when you and I look at my shirt, we would probably both say it's a light blue.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what you're experiencing when you're looking at this. There's no way for me to know what your experience is. Only you know. When I do a meditation and I focus on my breath that goes in through my nose and in and out, you know what, I know what it's like for me, but I have no idea what it is for you.
Yeah.
So part of it is to trust your own experience.
Okay.
So it's not me validating your experience. I'm just going to be here and say, help you. What did you experience? What was it like?
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong. I am not here to tell you right or wrong. I am merely here to help your curiosity experience to to drag it out of so it doesn't disappear like a dream again. Oh, there's just something strange that happened. So I'm helping you to drag it out of your subconscious, out of your, and keep it present. Something just happened, apparently, because you're telling me, and I'm not telling you, something just happened. And by you talking about it, you make it more important.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't know what the experience is. This is not for me, right? And the more you have the experience of knowing something, this is what it felt like for me, knowing something that nobody can validate or invalidate, and that it's merely true just because you've experienced it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have something interesting. Now there's a truth that lives inside of you.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that we should not have a shared truth, like 1 and 1 is 2 and those types of things.
Yeah.
But there's a truth that lives inside of you that only you can access. Okay. And so now when we have that, when the truth is that this makes you feel good or this makes you feel bad, or I want to experience more of this or less of that.
Yeah.
What if that was a ground truth? Because then we're not in the, oh, Julie, you should do this, or you should do that, or you should. It's like, no, I know exactly it's going to make me feel bad.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me it doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about learning to trust your inner experience, not to override everything else, not to override, but just to be there in addition to everything else that's going on as a strong voice at the table.
Yeah, it sounds like building the database of experiences that we can trust is our experience in this reality. Something that's what that it works for me. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to stop here. This journey continues, but you get my, so
Yeah.
Spirituality, in my opinion, is that journey.
Yeah.
To see what happens. And if you sit in the jungle even if you just decide to sit in the jungle for 4 days without food and water in isolation, you know, because it's right now probably happening in your head, or maybe not, but it happens in people's heads. I'm telling them about it and they go like, "You crazy. And you shouldn't do this because I care about you.
Yeah.
I'm afraid for you." Because science tells me that after 3 days without water, you're going to die, or at least you're going to have kidney damage. Medical science, right? Mm-hmm. And so now you have an interesting experience. Now I am processing fear.
Yeah.
Maybe it's mine, maybe I'm over mine, now it's yours. Now I'm processing your fear because I care about you.
Yeah.
You're important to me. I don't want you to feel fear, and I don't want you to. Now I'm processing fear. That's a very real experience. It's very, very real. I feel your fear, and I don't want you. I love you. I don't want to feel afraid for me.
That's how connected we are.
Yeah, totally. It's beautiful. It's utterly beautiful. And I'm going, and then my head goes like, yeah, but many different traditions have been doing this for hundreds of years. And I don't think they would be doing this if they had tons of people dying on them.
Yeah.
Or if everybody had kidney damage after. It doesn't seem that, you know. And by the way, I know a guy who just did it. And that guy tells me he never felt more alive than after doing this. Okay. So this is you could call it an extreme experience, but when you put yourself into a frame where you gonna have an extreme, and it is in many ways an extreme experience.
And maybe let's make it clear for people who are listening to us. You didn't just launch yourself for 4 days without, like, there is a frame, like, I mean, you had supervision. I mean, it's called a vision quest, is it? And like just for the little.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah.
It's called the traditional vision quest. It exists in the Lakota tradition, North America. It's been around forever. It used to be a process by which you turned, I'm not sure about females, but for males, you turned from a boy to a man. You were to go and have a vision. You're asking for a vision for presumably your life. And that's one of the ways to do it. And there's a preparation for it, there's intention. There is a whole process. It's actually, I would call it, today you would call it a technology around it, even though it doesn't, it's like you know, a month before you don't eat sugar and red meat and other things anymore, and you set your mind, essentially you make little bunches of tobacco on a string, and it's prayers. You what are you wishing for? And then when you're there are people looking out for you. So yes, you look in. I do not recommend, thank you for pointing it out, I do not recommend that you just go and sit in a local forest without food and water. And it's not what I recommend to do.
Yeah, imagine, oh, Jochen told us to do that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. So there are traditions in which that's true. And it's not just the Lakotas, and it's not just the Mayans in Mexico. It's a friend of mine who's in the Christian tradition said that one of their friends, who's maybe a pastor, I'm not sure, was going to go on a thing, and that his spiritual guide in that tradition said, you know what you should do? I know you like the ocean, but what you should do is you should go and sit in the desert for 3 days. I mean, with water, right? But you should sit in the desert for 3 days and just see what happens. This is universal, as far as I can tell. Okay, so now that we've covered,
sorry, because I was going to say, even just without the jungle experience, fasting is a lot more, like, I'm going to say fashionable, but like even, I have a friend who does dry fasting. Once a year, she does dry fasting and fasting with water, like 21 days. And she says and then it's like a total being plugged out of the matrix, and she goes in the park and all the animals starts following her. And well, so far she's fine, no kidney damage. but no, so yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's like you.
So again, apparently I'm taking you on a journey. So there we go. So that particular technology, what I called it earlier, technology, is actually built for you to notice stuff that you otherwise wouldn't notice. That's my lens on it. That's how I look at noticing. Is just the most amazing thing, that you notice that you have certain intentions, that you notice that you're actually spending time with it. And then, at some point in time, you sit in the jungle and there is nothing to do. There's nothing to do. 4 days, no cell phones, nobody to talk to, nothing. You don't get snack breaks, right?
Oh yeah. There is no running to the fridge when you get bored. Yeah.
Nothing. It's not right. So what do you do? So you watch the sun moving across the sky. I mean, sit with that for a moment. You're watching the sun move across the sky.
Yeah, for 4 days.
I mean, there's more going on. It's a jungle, and maybe there are birds, but the moon comes up, and there's animals migrating through every morning or it's like there's always just, but it's not. You start to notice things that you typically don't notice.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing that you're invariably going to notice is your state of mind. Oh my God, I'm so thirsty.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Depending on how you set up, right? Or whatever fear, it's going to be very clear that at some point fear is going to come through. Oh wow, fear. Huh. Interesting. I said I wasn't going to do anything. I could leave. By the way, you can't stop at any point in time, right? Nobody keeps you there.
Yeah.
It's like it's a short walk to where people are taking care of you, and people do check up on you. You may not notice it, but people do check up on you. Oh yeah, this is boring. No, I could give up. This is just silly. oh, this is all voices talking to me in my head. Yours may be different, but this is just some examples. And then there come the very personal ones. They are the ones that like, ah, yeah. Anyways, and then childhood memories or whatever, you know. So you can engage in activities that make it very likely to bring up, that make you very aware of what's going on in your mind, or
Yeah.
maybe in your spirit, if you want to believe that. I do, but if you want to believe that, and and make it very clear that there's something else to experience in this life other than our body and what our mind, that the voice is talking in our head.
And did you have some like crazy, I don't know, out of body or something while you were over there?
Um, of course, but for me, it wasn't out of body. For me, it was like I had a question. I had a certain question. It's a vision quest, right? So you're asking for a vision for
Yeah.
something personal or for something. It's supposed to be for you. So I'm asking for a vision for myself, not for the world, but for myself. And then I've done it this twice now, and I'm going to do it a third time next year. Um, it was day 2 this year in February. I think it was. It was day 2 that the vision dropped into. It was like dropped into me, fully formed.
Wow.
Like it wasn't like a trickle. It was just like there it is, and then I could look at it and well from different angles and walk around in it and ask questions to it and all that. And it's like
Oh, did you have broadband over
I
there?
don't have broadband to something. I'm not sure what it was, but I had broadband to something. And um, so yeah, there's a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Crazy. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens, but there was one that was so clear, and I was like, wow, okay, cool. I got 2 days left. What I'm gonna do now?
Oh, oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah, the vision arrived too quick now. Oh,
And then of course the answer is go deeper, but that's um, it's
very
an it's an it's such a beautiful experience. It is an incredibly beautiful experience, and anyone who feels the slightest inkling of doing something like this, research it or you know, email me or whatever. It's utterly amazing.
yeah.
Utterly amazing. And then coming out on the other side and just and having the first sip of water again, having the first piece of fruit, and it's almost like being born again. It's so beautiful. Hugely recommended.
Yeah.
Oh,
And how does the coming back into don't say civilized life, but like everyday life and routine and working and clients and stuff, what does it change, or how does that transition feel after such a high experience?
well, I recommend that everybody who does it takes some time.
Yeah.
Like take a day or two and maybe stay in,
Mhm.
whether it's in the jungle or in a place close to it, and do that. And then try to figure out what you're gonna, similar to what we talked about earlier, try to figure out what you want to take home of that. Because
Okay.
something will have happened.
Mhm.
For sure. It's impossible to go through something like this and not having had an experience.
Okay.
Something will have happened. And how can you take that, whatever you want to take with into your daily life? And so since I'm getting a bit sniffly anyways already, so what happened to me the first time around is that I got home and I felt so in love with life and the world and everything, full well knowing how messed up it is, fully understanding of all the, at least to a large extent, understanding just how messed up it is. I was so in love with the world and with life and with humanity and everything. I can't even describe it to you, and it's just, I can still bring it alive. And it's, where do you get something like that from? And it's such a gift. Yeah.
And I bet that's the energy that people feel of you, that they want to get. I'm going to pay you now to figure out what's different with you. Here's what's different.
And then tell them like you and tell them like you're crazy. Like, all right, I can help you find your way to something like that, because
Wow.
you're very likely going to be different. I think you can, as I said earlier, I think you actually can. I think you can have it all. I think I ideally hope that everybody can have it all, but I think most of us can have it all. And what an amazing world that would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And so Jochen, because like it's amazing because we feel like we're, I don't know, doing a full circle, like, and we are, we are basically at time, but so maybe is there something we haven't talked about, or a question I haven't asked that you wanted to want to answer, or some last words that you feel like expressing?
I think I've pretty much. I mean, there's way more to talk about, but I think I've said a lot, and I think much of it probably came across anyways. Yes, there's one thing, and that's maybe also the beginning of a topic only. There's a notion that I think most of us, if not all of us, carry, that there's something that is normal,
Mm-hmm.
that we're healthy.
Yeah.
Medicine, for example, would have an opinion of whether we're normal or whether we're healthy, and then it's normal for our age or not. It's normal, and if it's not normal, then it's below the line, and we're going to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you therapy or medicament or medication or whatever the case may be to get you back to normal. The thing that I would like everybody to know and feel is that there's actually an above the line. That what we think is normal is maybe normal in the mathematical sense. There's a bell curve, and then most of us are somewhere around here, and that's not. But I do believe that hopefully for all of us, but certainly for most of us, there's way, way, way more to be had here. And it's not all that complicated, and it's not all that hard, and it's not all that unreachable. And it's worth looking for it. It is 100% worth looking for it.
I like that. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So when we think we are good, it can get even better. And I get a sense that when we think we are good, and by the standards you describe, is the 5 sensory regular human, but then there is, like, above that line, there is the multisensory aspect that we get to learn to tap in. That's
Yeah, and it's gonna make our 5 senses, the sensory experience, it's gonna light it up as well. So even if you want to just feel amazing in your body and your brain chemistry to do whatever the thing is that, serotonin and dopamine and all that stuff, and have it in amazing balance or firing like crazy or whatever your thing is actually available. It's actually available. So I encourage everybody to, to at least believe it and maybe look for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make sure to share, like, a way to connect with you for people who are, want a piece of that, and maybe I'll your doorway to start a journey for that. And I want to thank you immensely for accepting to have this conversation. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think we are due another one already for sure.
I'd be happy to. That's totally fun. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jochen, and thank you everyone, and I'll see you guys at the next conversation. Ciao.
So,
Love you
ciao.
all.